Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. This will be the start of kind of a new thing that I'm doing on YouTube. I used to post kind of vlog style content, but now, obviously, in the last 2 to 3 years, I've definitely moved more towards coaching, and coaching being kind of like my primary thing and my primary influence, I guess, so to speak. So this is going to be something new that I want to start, that I think it could be very important to not only help younger coaches. I think that's kind of like a, so to speak, a calling that I have, is to help younger coaches and be there for younger coaches, learning like the soft skills aspect of things, but also be sort of a mentor for my own people. Also will give me the ability to kind of show what comes with if you get coached by me. So without further ado, this will be the start of the soft skills series, part 1. A big thing that I think is very underrated within coach relationships and client relationships, especially in the sport of powerlifting, is soft skills. Being able to create a relationship, being able to maneuver a relationship, understanding, what gets an athlete ticking and what they need emotionally or psychologically to do well as an athlete. And I think that a lot of people tend to forget, in especially like weightlifting styles of sports, like let's say bodybuilding and powerlifting especially, we tend to have a big percentage of athletes and coaches kind of posting and ghosting, just posting a program, not really talking to the athletes, saying good job, bad job, da-da-da-da-da, not really creating a relationship, which, if it works for one athlete and it doesn't work for another, that's fine. I'm not here to create judgment or anything upon that, but I have a very strong belief system that a coach that can give an athlete belief or understanding or a relationship that will allow for an athlete to perform at a higher level brings their ceiling from here to here. That's just my belief system. Especially from my young age as an athlete, it was very important to me that I had a support system. I had a coach that I was one of those athletes you could kind of like talk to and talk shit to, and it was fine. It pushed me. But some athletes need more of an arm over the shoulder kind of relationship, and that works for them and it gets them ticking as well. So now that we're done with the intro, without further ado, Soft Skills 101 Part 1, or I don't know what I like better. Leave it in the comment section. Soft Skills 101 or Soft Skills Series Part 1. Episode 1 will be maneuvering athlete emotions. I started doing kind of infographics recently, and I felt like it'd be a really good idea to, take a 4-page infographic and add some nuance to it within a YouTube structure. And I think that could help for a lot of coaches to learn. Powerlifting now has done really, really well with creating content sort of like this, where you're kind of sitting down, just having a conversation or a dialogue, kind of, so to speak, face to face with an athlete. And I think this could be really good for my own coaching to just show a little bit more nuanced as opposed to a couple of sentences in a paragraph. So, Soft Skills 101, maneuvering athlete emotions. So we're talking from a coaching perspective here. We're not talking about the athlete. We're talking about what can we do in order to get the most out of our athlete, and how can we be mindful of a situation within an athlete and a coach to get the most, or to fix a situation, or to allow for an athlete to really do their best. So my first slide goes over situational awareness. When we're talking about situational awareness, we need to know what's going on, who the athlete we're talking to, and what gets them ticking, right? A lot of the times, especially when we create a relationship with an athlete, we kind of know how we have to maneuver this situation with them. Some athletes might be a bit more neurotic. Some athletes might be a little bit more laid back. Some athletes just might not really want to talk to you at that moment, and that's okay. But that's your job as a coach, to understand that relationship between the two of you and to develop that relationship. In any kind of coaching relationship, you're going to have to wear multiple different caps for multiple different athletes. So you have to be able to be understanding of what gets different athletes ticking, what they're going to need. Situational awareness is going to be a major stepping stone in being able to maneuver situations where an athlete might be crashing out, an athlete might not be happy, an athlete might not be enjoying their training, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to be able to take a step back, look at who you're talking to, look at what they're going through, what the situation is, and understand how we approach this issue or this conversation. Because one conversation with another athlete, let's say there's an athlete A here, there's an athlete B here, you're not going to be able to have the same conversation with athlete A or athlete B, because obviously they're two different people. They emotionally react to things differently, and they're going to react to different kind of conversation or different kind of approaches to how we can maneuver them and have a conversation with them, or have a simple troubleshooting session with them. So it's not going to be the same for everybody. It's always going to be different, and you need to be understanding of that. So as a coach, you need to be willing to wear different caps within the conversation and put yourself where that athlete is. Because if you're not able to put yourself where that athlete is, there's definitely a big chance that instead of maneuvering the issue or what's going on properly, you might actually add more fuel to the fire. So knowing who you're talking to, what you're talking about, and how they react to certain situations is extremely important. We all know that like having a certain response for every athlete, it's just not going to be the same. Everybody reacts to different feedback the same, whether you're very offensive, very defensive, laid back, you don't want to have that conversation with them. Someone might take you being defensive and taking your space as kind of like, oh, you don't want to talk to me, or someone offensive might be like, hey, you're being a little bit too forward. I don't know if this is going to be optimal for me, because it might just be adding more stress to the situation. And as coaches, we want to do as much as we possibly can to pull stress away. This is very situational. Sometimes we need to be defensive because we have an athlete who commonly or regularly has like sort of crash out moments, and you might get to the point where it's like, you know what, I'm typically offensive in this situation. It doesn't make the issue better. I'm going to take a step back here. I'm going to give them their space. I'm going to let them auto-regulate, make their decisions, whether it be their training session or after the training session, based on how they're viewing their training objectively. And you might actually be able to step back and give them a place to objectively view their training. And then when it comes to being offensive, you might have an athlete who is just a true athlete. You're able to kind of be honest with them. You're able to be upfront with them. You're able to maybe even give them a call. Not all coaches are meant to give a call or obligated to give a call during a training session, but it could definitely help out an athlete. When I add to this slide here, I talk about taking a bird's eye view. When we're having a situation with an athlete, sometimes we have to like take a step back, like I said, view what's going on, whether it take a minute or 5 minutes or 20 minutes or a full day. That's up to you. But you have to take a bird's eye view everything, take the information in, take the information that's being given from the athlete to you, and also be able to understand the emotion that's being expressed to you. You need to be able to take a step back just to read the situation. Read the situation, see what's going on in that situation, understand the athlete we're talking to, and then from there, maneuver your situation the way that you feel is appropriate. You can't just dive bomb or fly right into the window when it comes down to talking to an athlete, because sometimes you just might not have taken the time to understand what's going on. You might approach it emotionally, or you might approach them when they are emotional, and it might not help the situation. When it comes to these situations, you definitely just have to be mindful of your situational awareness, be patient, take your time. There's no time clock on the situation. You don't have to go there or they're going to destroy their training. You don't have to go into the situation or the situation is just going to get worse. Sometimes we just have to approach these emotions tactically. We need to be patient so that we can solve the problem. Without the patience, without the tactical prowess in terms of dealing with an athlete's emotions, there's definitely a chance that things can just get messy, or you as an athlete might approach the situation wrong. You might be rash and emotional as a coach, and then you can make it 10 times worse. You're supposed to take the fire out, not add gas to the fire. Next, let's talk on self-awareness. So, big area of importance, I think, in every single asset of being a coach is self-awareness. You need to know who you are. Look in the mirror, understand where you are. Look at the message you typed, read it, understand what might be developed or understood from what that feedback might be, or listen to that voice message that you were about to send, and be very mindful of how did we talk in this situation, and is this way of approaching the situation correct? Because you could be wrong in the way that you approach the situation, and instead of taking the fire out, you might add fuel to the fire, and that's not what we want. The way that we react to the situation and the way that we respond to the situation will always impact the situation in a huge way. It can either take the situation out, or it can make the situation worse, or it can put you in a position where there is no fix to the situation. So we need to be understanding of the way that athletes will intake that feedback. When it comes to intaking feedback, you're not always going to just be able to give the same athlete a response. Just like I said earlier, not every response is going to be the same for every athlete. So just make sure that you have self-awareness in where you're putting yourself in that situation, and have self-awareness in how you're speaking to that athlete, to make sure that when we talk to that athlete, we're making sure that we're not putting ourselves in a position to make that situation worse, overstep a boundary, or be too defensive in that situation where the athlete might totally crash out. Like I said, not your job to be on top of an athlete, not your job to hold the hand of an athlete, but understanding the emotions that an athlete can have can help us tenfold, make a situation better. We need to understand that feedback needs to be constructive for the athlete. Sometimes constructive for another athlete is different for another athlete. Like I said, one athlete saying toughen up to one athlete might be like, what are you trying to say? I'm not tough. What are you trying to say? I'm not doing well enough, or am I just not good at the sport? Another athlete might need you to take a step back, and they might just need you to tell them like, hey, give yourself grace. This is okay. Make sure that you're looking at your objective feedback. You're looking at your objective, look at your programming, look at what's expected within that training, and then make that decision based on where we need to be, right? Is this a situation where the athlete is going to respond well to the words of toughen up? up? Is this athlete objectively one of those athletes that enjoys being kind of pushed harder, being told that they're being a little bit softer? Or is this athlete going to be one of those athletes that if you tell to toughen up or that they're training soft, they're going to shrivel up and become like a little raisin? And that's the last thing you want when it comes down to maneuvering certain athletes. There's always a right and a wrong way to approach things. So like I said, multiple different caps. Be understanding when you have to be tough or understand when you have to put an arm over the shoulder. Super, super important. The last thing you want to do is belittle an athlete by saying toughen up or be like, you need to soften up. Because if you belittle an athlete, then there's a chance that you can, be in a position where you approached a situation and you were too upfront with them, and it might hurt your relationship and fragment your relationship with them, or it could just put a big wrench in their training, because when they hear that type of feedback from especially like a mentor or someone that they care about their feedback, it might put them in a position to intake feedback, and it might just ruminate in their head for sessions on sessions on sessions, and it could really mess with sessions and the flow of training all in general. And then to finish off, I have two different styles or approaches that you can go over with. You can go arm over the shoulder. Arm over the shoulder is kind of like the coach that you're able to use the strategy to make an athlete feel a little bit better when they're dealing with emotional things. We're not all here to be therapists, and that's the truth. But there are going to be times where an athlete might be going through something at home, an athlete might be going through something within training, and they're just in a rut. And sometimes the last thing they need is to get told that they're being soft or that they're being a pushover, right? So sometimes being able to understand the athlete's emotions and just be able to put your arm over the shoulder and be like, hey, listen, I'm here for you. I understand you. You are heard. I just want to tell you, you just need to give yourself some grace. Here's the objective feedback that's right in front of our face. This is what's going on. I think that you're being hard on yourself, and this might not be what you want to do, because at the end of the day, we might need to just like kind of send that video, send that feedback, forget about it, and go home, because you might be dealing with this in a more emotional state than you need to be. And I think that we just need to take a step back, go do what's, regular life things, move away from it, and then be able to approach it differently. An arm of the shoulder can be a really strong approach for certain athletes, because it just will allow them to keep their training momentum as opposed to kind of like shutting down and becoming more of like a recluse. That tends to happen with athletes who need a little bit more emotional support, is they can become a recluse, and it makes their training hard, and they can be really hard on themselves, and they'll go into their training with a really negative attitude towards themselves for a long series of time, and that can really be detrimental to long-term training, your relationship with training, and your ability to enjoy your training. So just know that, those days where you can give them that objective information, say, hey, this is what we're expecting, this is what was expected, take it easy on yourself, move on, it's okay, on to the next session. Arm of the shoulder can be really powerful. Understanding that like an athlete can have grace is big, because sometimes maybe an athlete, how they were raised or what their situation was away from training, can put them in a position where they weren't probably offered much grace, so they don't give themselves much grace. So you being a beacon to give them grace can really push them really far in this sport. And then there's the situation where it's the opposite, where we can have a stern talking to with an athlete. A good example for athletes that can typically take a good stern talking to are like football players. They're used to getting screamed at in their face. They're used to that. So sometimes if you take a step back too hard, they're going to be like, do you not care about me? Like, I'm trying my best. Are you not noticing that type of relationship? And a lot of those kinds of athletes, not just football athletes, but athletes who can take a stern talking to. Different reasons why you'd give a stern talking to, right? Are you having multiple different encounters with an athlete where their training habits are bad? Is their attitude bad? Is their attitude negligent towards their training? Are they crashing out because of their own issues, right? So that might be a time where if this happens multiple times, you might have to sit down and just have this conversation, or send that tough 2.5-minute voice message where you're like, listen, you're doing all this and it's only hurting you, and you're putting yourself in a position to not do well. And at the end of the day, I will take responsibility for having this conversation with you, but I will not take responsibility for your training habits, because your training habits are your own doing. The crash outs in the training, the maxing out randomly, the going over RP, the training almost too hard, which is very rare in accessories, could be a reason that you're not doing well. And instead of you crashing out, you need to look in the mirror and understand what's going on in this situation, and understand that you're your own worst enemy right here. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be angry. You don't have to be an a-hole. You just have to be willing to have that conversation with them and make sure that they understand that you're there for them to help them. You're giving them objective information. And just because you're being a little tough on them doesn't mean you hate them. Someone that loves you is willing to give you the information that they don't want to hear. So understand that you being tough on them is only there to help them and to be constructive within helping them. They're hard conversations to have. If they're done right, they can make a major difference within someone's training. I've had multiple conversations with this where at the end of the conversation, I was like, listen, this was a tough conversation, but this is for your best. And then months later, we're like, damn, I'm really glad that we had this conversation because it really created tons of solid training. And these conversations can be extremely uncomfortable, but so is powerlifting. So when it comes down to powerlifting and being uncomfortable, we have to kind of learn to get comfortable with that because powerlifting is not comfortable. So being comfortable, being uncomfortable is a little bit weird for us. But being able to have these uncomfortable conversations where you as a coach might be like, oh, do I have to have this conversation? This is a tough conversation. I really don't want to stress this athlete out. And also, I'm very stressed out. It can just be one of those conversations where like, this sucks. I know it sucks, but we have to have this conversation because if we don't have this conversation, we're not going to improve and I'm not going to bring the best version out of yourself. And if you're a coach that cares about your athletes, you're going to be able to have that conversation and you're going to be able to fix the problem and you're going to be able to maneuver it. These soft skills are so important, and I don't want to get too overly nuanced where this is just a 20-minute video of me kind of yapping, but understanding that these soft skills are so important, understanding situational awareness, self-awareness, understanding like when to put your arm over the shoulder or when to be stern with an athlete is so important because that's the difference in not only retaining athletes, but it's a difference in making sure that athletes keep going and they keep clicking and they keep getting in their training momentum and stay in that training momentum. And as opposed to diverting off the path that they should be on, you're able to keep them on the positive path to continue training positively just with one, maybe 15, 20-minute conversation. So that's it for today. This is going to be the start of Soft Skills series or Soft Skills 101, Part 1, Maneuvering Athlete Emotions. I'm going to do my best to start posting these every Friday, ideally, with an infographic that attaches to them so that you can look at the infographic, you can watch me talk or yap, and you can go over that. So with that being said, my Instagram is Dak the Ripper. YouTube is right here. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. I enjoyed this. I know I can be a little yappy, but I enjoy this. So if this is something that you'd enjoy, subscribe, like and comment. I love you guys, and I hope that all my athletes are watching because I love you guys too. So have a great day and appreciate you. And Francis got me this awesome coffee today, and it's free donut day. Look how adorable this donut little baggie is. It's got a Boston cream in there. Have a great day, guys. Like and subscribe.